So he will help us learn about his journey in that regard. And he also works both in the corporate sphere using some ways of weaving these two modalities together, as well as working in communities around addiction work. He's dealt with prostitutions, gangs, criminals. So we are going to learn how you do all of this. And it seems like this approach works very well for you. It seems like you've had a lot of success. So I now know you want to do a kind of a grounding in the way that you open. So we will hand it over to you to do that. And you are on mute, Bernhard.
The famous unmute button. Thank you, Linda, and thank you, Nancy, for introducing me. Yeah, and welcome to you all. And I feel honored and pleased to see so many people showing up, and lovely to have a dialogue with each other around the similarities which I think I see, the universalities which I see both in the social environment as well in the corporate world. We're all human beings after all. But as human beings, I would love to open with a short music, making some music, play some flute. That is good medicine for me to bring myself here where I am and to ground myself and to bring down my breath and my energy and come out of my head and more into my heart. And I'd love to share that with each other. So I'm not a brilliant flute player. The person who is a natural brilliant flute player is right now in the screen next to me. That is Jelle. That is my son. I'm really, really pleased that he is there. Jelle, great that you show up. Fantastic. And Jelle is a fantastic musician, and I'm not, but I play flute. And I ask you to feel yourself. And feel yourself just a little bit below your skin. Feel yourself. How do I feel today? How am I today? Where am I today? And where do I want to be today? And just take some easy breaths while I try to play flute. And then you see that the flute won't work. Fantastic, isn't it? This is amazing. I think I have to stop. And it's really amazing that the flute doesn't work right now. So what is that saying? Anyway,
it's cold in Sweden.
Yeah, it is cold, and I tried to play it before, and perhaps it's now a little bit humid. So I leave the flute.
Okay.
But what I love to bring forward with this is that I love, before we start a dialogue, I love to take a stand still together and have a moment with each other to ground ourselves, to feel our feet, to feel our breath, and also feel the intention with which we come to this circle. And to speak, to use the same words as I learned from my big teacher, Phil Lane, to let this place where we meet around the fire, to let it be a sacred place, where we find each other with open hearts and open minds. And that's why I love to play the flute or the drum before starting to talk, because we talk so much. And a lot of our transfer which we make, even online, is through something else than words. And therefore, I love to do the flute. But welcome anyway.
Nice. Very nice. Thank you for that opening. So I think you were doing consulting work, or maybe you were working in a bank and then suddenly you had to deal with mergers. Maybe tell your story of how you got into the field of working with dialogue and then found your teacher, and just tell us how you kind of resonated to this work and got into it.
Yeah, where to start? Actually, I never worked in a bank. I'm originally an engineer. So, yeah, I think it's a good idea to everyone who is not talking to put yourself on mute, because I hear a lot of background noise right now. Thank you. Yep, I'm doubting where.
Bernhard, you just put yourself on mute. Okay. No, Bernhard, you're still on mute.
Who does that?
I think I did it because I tried to mute everyone and I did it. Unfortunately, I did it for us as well.
Great, no problem. Yeah, where to start is, but we come back later, I think, to the very beginning, because I think when being in a dialogue, it is very, for me at least, it was very important to recognize and to acknowledge where I come from, and what nest I come from, where I'm born in, and what lessons I got from there, and what things I had to take care of before continuing, and that is a continuous journey. But in my professional life, I started with engineering, and then I did a master's in business administration. And at that moment, I found myself in a company, an organization who was in a merger. They were merging 3 companies together, and they were all 3 reasonable, profitable. But within 4 months, we were really, really in the red figures. So that was a fantastic failure. And at that time, I was doing my executive MBA because I thought I needed that. But the nice thing is, of this executive MBA, it brought me to writing a thesis on this merger. And what I started doing then for writing this, I started in my coffee breaks. I started to talk with all kinds of people in the organization. So from top to bottom, I start to interview them and ask them and have dialogues with them. Without realizing it was a dialogue, I was having dialogues with people about the problems, about the situation and how to solve it, and about the fake messages which were going around and everything. It was emptying the bucket and allowing new ideas to pop in. And then the director left, had to leave, and then a temporary director came, and he had the time to read my report. And then he asked if I could make that bigger, what I was doing now in the coffee breaks. And then it became a change program. So that's how I got into contact with dialogue, the first forms. And then a couple of years later, when I was working in a consulting firm, I was asked to be a facilitator in a meeting we called that Encounter Worldviews. It was a meeting of over 100 people from all over the world, people who were leading NGOs, people from the World Bank, United Nations, CEOs of big organizations, but also swamis, rabbis, imams, priests, and poets, and there was one Native American chief. And you could only see on his moccasins that he was a Native American, and he was a very humble man. And even though I didn't exchange a word with him, he made so much impression on me that in the end, after 4 days, I walked onto him and gave him a hug and said, "Phil, I've learned so much of you, but I haven't changed a word with you." And then he said, "Brother, you have not learned something. You just recognized what's already there." And that's how I got into dialogue with the talking stick, because then we started a foundation, the World Dialogue Foundation. That was one of the outcomes of the conference. And that was our own initiative of a couple of facilitators. And we invited him. We found a sponsor, and we invited Phil to fly in for several times. And he introduced us into his teaching of dialogue. And that's how I got it going. And yeah, that was the beginning.
I love the phrase you said, that he said to you, that you just recognize something that's already there. That's beautiful. And was it true for you, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. What I found so impressive was that the words he was bringing over, I had the feeling that when hearing one word, I understood 20. It was so. It resonated so in such a natural way with me that I thought, wow, this is so pure, ancient, and true, and so beyond all kind of what do you call it? Yeah, fake pictures, fake images. And I was also realizing that working in this very prestigious consulting firm, how much I was keeping up a fake picture myself too. And that was a very, I think he touched that in a very compassionate way, and so that made it very easy for me to step over that and to let go of that. Yeah.
You say that he knew dialogue himself. Did he know it from the native tradition, or did he himself learn what we call Bohm-inspired dialogue, and then he mixed it with native indigenous thought?
Well, one thing of Phil, what I really appreciate about him is that he is very open-minded, and he's very open to different I call it channels of knowledge, of wisdom, and he's always looking for the universality in it. And through that, and also through his I think it was his uncle who wrote something about Bohm and Jung, and who made actually a comparison between Native American spirituality and Bohm and Jung. So that is, so that's a very, very fascinating thing. And it was also that his grandfather was both a medicine man as well as a priest. So that is also showing that they were open to blend things together, because it's a universal wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched the video that you have that's on the Academy site, where you talk about the work you did in Rotterdam, and I'd love you to tell that story of the work you did with the idea of getting the prostitutes off the street, and because I said what you did and how you brought people together and the results of it. It's just such a wonderful story. Would you spend a little time telling that story?
Yeah, when we started this foundation, we learned how to facilitate dialogue, and then we said we want to put this into practice, and where shall we do that? And many of us were from corporate background, and then we wanted to do something in the social field, and also because Phil was inspiring us on that, because he has been active in the social field for 45 years, 50 years now, I think. And then a question came from a deputy mayor of the city of Rotterdam, and she was a very, very ambitious lady and daring lady, and she had an ambition to get. There was a neighborhood where there was street prostitution, and she said, "I want to make this neighborhood prostitution free, but without needing to use violence, without needing to send in the police with the batons and whatever. How can we do that?" And then there was a close friend of mine who knew me and Phil, and he stuck up his finger. And when she was asking that, he said, "Then you should talk to Bernhard, and via Bernhard with Phil." And then we got it going. Mm-hmm. Then we got an assignment to enter that neighborhood. And what we did was our ambition was to get a whole system in the room. And the whole system was the prostitutes, the other neighborhoods, people in the neighborhood who were living there, also some people who were addicted, but also the police officers of the neighborhood, the social workers, but also the policymakers of the city itself to be there. So it became, we invited them, and we went literally on the streets to approach people and to work with the social work together, to approach people, to get them willing and open to come to this session. And we started with a 2 days session. And in that 2 day session, we introduced ceremony, welcoming people in a big circle, and inviting them to come with an open heart and share their intention. And we also work with music and with dance. And so through a program of sharing, first sharing where they stood in their lives, and then, so that is more or less emptying the bucket, and also hearing from each other what their suffering was, or what their pleasure was, and so true openness. And we alternated that every time we did a circle, sometimes with the circle. Then before we had a break, we did a dance. So we've turned on music, and one of us was a dance master, and he guided us through a dance, all kind of dances. And that alternation of working with music, dance, with ceremonies and dialogue, that really gave a very uplifting atmosphere with all of the people. And through that, we could very easily make the switch from emptying the buckets and being in your pain, in your sadness, in your sorrow, and in your frustration about the neighborhood and everything, towards feeling that, to envisioning a future, and then also feeling and recognizing that everyone had more or less the same dream. Whether you were a prostitute, or a police officer, or a civil worker, or another person in the same neighborhood, we all have so much in common. And that created a very safe and inspiring bedding for people to envision a future in a different way as they were living right now, and how to help each other in that way. So we ended up with a program in which people started around, in small groups, started initiatives for the neighborhood, and in those small groups, prostitutes were working together with other people of the neighborhood, and together with the police officers, and together with some entrepreneurs in the neighborhood. So we started a program in which people were helping each other in jobs, to get other jobs. But what the most amazing thing was that through that contact is healing. Through that open-hearted contact, people got beyond their self-images, beyond their low self-esteem, and they started to help each other in that, and started to greet each other. Even though they had different backgrounds from different groups, they started to greet each other on the street. So there was a little magic was happening there in that neighborhood. And after 1.5 years, the prostitutes all had other jobs, and there was a last day that they came, and then we had arranged, how you call it, now you have food trucks nowadays, and then we had a make-up truck. So they were all got beautifully dressed, they got new clothes, they got beautiful makeup and everything, and they walked in pride towards a new future. That was a beautiful, inspiring program to participate in.
That's a wonderful story.
That really is. Was there follow-up? I mean, or was it just 2 days and pretty much they were off on their own again?
No, there was a follow-up, and there was definitely a follow-up. There has to be, because such a journey, you don't make that overnight. Overcoming all kind of traumatic ingrained patterns, that you don't do that overnight. And it is fantastic that you create with this. You create a very safe container in which people can face themselves and face each other. But you have to support that. You have to hold that space for a certain time, because the people in the neighborhood, they don't have that that skill, at least not in fully conscious way. So you have to give that follow up. So we did it's a long time ago, but every 2 months, 2.5 months, and that it became longer later, we had follow-ups. And in the beginning, we did it already, I think, after 3 or 4 weeks, a follow-up, to get to the flying wheel going. And and to make it truly an environment where people could to take new steps and discover new steps for themselves. Yeah.
So what is your secret in terms of making the space safe? Because I don't sense that you're really teaching dialogue as much as holding the space for people to walk into it and to empty. So I'm curious, what do you see as the core secret of your ability to do that? What's your magic? What's your magic?
Well, I think here I use another beautiful quote of my dear brother Phil Lane. And he had a beautiful saying. He said, I can only bring people where I've been myself. And that doesn't mean that I need to be a prostitute to understand the prostitute, but I think it is important that I know what it is to face your shadows. That I know what it is to face your deep dark places in yourself, and to have compassion with yourself and to overcome that. To try different, and I know what it is to do that in a circle. I know what it is to be held by a circle, and that gives me also the how you call it, the peace of heart and the peace of mind to be in a circle and hold space. Yeah. And that sounds very vague, but if I would give words to that, it's about resonance. And it's take a baby. When a baby is really upset, take my son. I take my son as an example. When my son was born, and he was born, he was one of a twin, and his birth was quite traumatic, call it this way. Jelle had to be pulled out by his legs, and by the time he got out, his entire back was blue, completely blue. And he was shaking all over. He was lying in such an aquarium, and then my wife came from the operation room, and she said, "Yeah, but what shall we do?" I said, "Well," and I picked it up. I picked Jelle up, and I put him on the chest on the breast of his mother, and he could see a big shiver going through him, and the tone of his skin immediately changed. And that is resonance. That's energy resonance. That's what's happening. That's how we are constructed as human beings. So we resonate with each other constantly. So the moment someone comes in your space and someone is very aggressive and you are not, then it's always the battle of the energies. Which energy is going to take over? And if you can hold ground and hold your space, then you can ease down that aggression of the other person and let him or her also come in the heart. So it's a continuous challenge when you're in such a circle where a lot of trauma is playing around, is how can I be in my heart? How can I be in fully compassion with what is here? And how can I be trusting trusting the circle, the wisdom of the circle, that things are going okay? If I don't trust, if I stop trusting, so I'm worrying, I'm in my panic, then people resonate with that, because when they are not knowing what to do, because they are confronted with pain, with trauma, whatever, then they seek a place where they can anchor on. And as a facilitator, you're the first one they look and feel into. So it is your challenge to be really an open vessel of compassion. And I think that is you learn that by falling on your face, I think, and by doing it myself, having done it myself. And I'm still learning every day, I think. But that is, I think, a very important ingredient of the secret, if you call it that way.
Yeah, yes, being able to be vulnerable yourself so that they know the space is safe, that you're safe, because you're willing to share.
Yeah. That's what happened with me. This in the beginning when my flute didn't work, I felt very, very vulnerable.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about when Lee Nickel, we interviewed him, and he talked a little bit about Bohm saying that he thought that the problem people were having is that they were not doing enough inner work between the times they met in dialogue, and that it was the inner work that was both missing and critical. And so I hear that in what you're saying, that you're not calling it inner work, but that's sort of what I'm hearing, that you're recognizing your own pain, your own scare, your own worry, and that and connecting that to where that is in other people.
Yeah, and I would like to. I noticed when I met the indigenous, I noticed also how much we as Western society, we tend to call my problem so much my problem, and not a problem of us all. And they got a saying. They say the hurt of one is the hurt of all, and the healing of one is the healing of all.
Right.
So when you're doing your inner work, it is much more powerful. And if you look at the indigenous tribes in Africa, they do exactly the same. The moment someone in the tribe has got a problem, then they start dancing around such a person and take that person literally in their energy and dance with that person, and they relieve, and they feel supported. They feel the love of the community, and they feel themselves held, and they allow themselves through that to have also come to. I think a lot has to do come to self-compassion, because before that it is self-rejection, and how to get beyond your self-rejection, that is you need compassion for that, and if you can't have that self-compassion yourself, then it is very strong to have that, receive that compassion from the circle. So that's what I love about the indigenous approach. It's not do your inner work yourself and then enter dialogue again. No, it is you are in dialogue and you are very vulnerable, and your vulnerability opens the compassion at the other side. Right. And then it starts to stream, and then things happen. And that is, yeah, I've met that so many times, and so many, tear-dropping times that these situations happen, and then people open their heart and dare to reflect, and they dare to have compassion with themselves. And I think this self-reflection and this self-compassion together is an opening for growth, to getting beyond your survival reflexes, call it that way.
Yeah, and it's amazing.
Yeah, and this is what I want to make also the jump. This is universal, so it is also in the boardroom. I see the same thing in the boardroom. It's the same reflex.
I was just going to say that it doesn't matter if you're working with people who have addictions, though this model I think works really well for that. But people in the boardroom, most people in the boardroom will never feel that safety to really open up to what's real. And if you don't have that level of openness, then how can you ever really talk about anything together? Because you're leaving half of it out, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This now some principles of Phil and his Dakota tribe comes in, and that is in me, and that is that every human being, we are spiritual beings, and development comes from within, and healing is an essential part of development. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't heal, then you're constantly in a survival mode, and someone is in a survival mode doesn't develop. So that is a universal wisdom, I think, and also in in the corporate environment, you also have that. You have sometimes it can be very, very unsafe in these kind of environments. And we tend to ignore that, because this is the modus operandi which we work with. And I think you're doing yourself short and your organization short when you keep that way of working with each other, if you continue with that.
Yeah.
I can imagine, though, that when you work with corporations or boards, that this can feel quite new to them, and maybe people in English often say it's too soft, it's too. Do you get some of that reaction? And if so, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, and it is also sometimes. I think it's very good to not come forward with these kind of things too bluntly, too openly. I think it is good to let it drop in slowly. Yeah, because
like raindrops.
Yes, because it's fair. And one thing I learned, in the beginning I was really full of passion of this way of thinking and being, and then I brought it with too much force. And that was not a success, because then I bump into people who close up and think that I'm threatening instead of a safe place. So I was getting the opposite of what I was aiming for. I was so fully convinced that this was a way which could really help them, and it didn't help at all. And I ended up also frustrated. So I could go back and had a look at myself. Okay, what was happening here? I'm kicked out.
Yeah. I was curious a little bit about your work in nature. Like, how does that help? You gave us that wonderful outdoor training video, and it seems like you do a lot of things outdoors. And I'm just curious, how does nature help the healing process from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's a very natural, again, very natural thing. If we, I say, if you want to empty your head and to reflect on yourself and to take a breath, literally take a breath, because the breath is also the breath of life. That's the fifth element, which the native calls. It's taking a breath needs space. And you do that when you're walking on the beach. You do that when you're walking in the forest. And you don't do that in a shopping mall. And you don't do that in a regular boardroom setting, at least not in a regular. So I think it's, especially for making some first steps, it is wonderful to take people out in nature, because in nature, around the campfire, you have the most beautiful talks with each other, and through that also with yourself. So, and I think everyone has got their experience in doing a hiking holiday or having a hike in the afternoon, and be aware of what is happening in yourself. Take a stand still at the end of the afternoon and feel, hey, how am I now, and how did I was before I started this hike, and I like to enlarge that a little bit and take people for several days into the woods or into nature, and it brings you, what it does to me, it brings me very much into when I'm really in a place where I can sense that you're in the middle of nowhere, where you can hear the silence, a place where you can see the bear poo in the forest. So you know that you're sharing the place with some other creatures, and you feel vulnerable. And getting beyond that, you feel very much carried by it. And then you have this, like what Bohm is also talking about, you have this sense of the whole is coming into yourself. And then meeting each other, and then talking to each other. And Stephanie's writing, nature has a very slow vibration. Exactly. It makes you slow down and makes you also resonate in a different way. So therefore, nature is a fantastic facilitator for that.
Do you get very many corporate groups outside?
Yeah. Actually, with some of my colleagues are also listening right now, and we have a sort of concept we made out of it, and we call it Build Basecamp. And what we do then is we take groups of people, and that can be 15 or sometimes 35 people. We take them out in nature, and we have them build their own base camp. And then I bring in this native touch. They set up their own teepee camp, and they meet around a fire with each other, and they're having talks, business talks the next day, but in this teepee setting, and it's completely different. You have a completely different setting. And it brings people much closer to each other and to themselves. And you come much faster to the core of things when you meet each other in nature in such a context. It works, yeah. And then, of course, the challenge is how to bring that back to the office. And what rituals do you need for that? And that's beautiful if you let them think about that themselves and let them co-create that self.
Yeah, and I bet you with Zoom it's an even more difficult challenge.
I want to come back to sort of where we started with the music. My growing up, I was in a family that performed musically. All of us played instruments and we performed. Most of my growing up, from the time I was maybe 10 up through the time I was 20, we performed. And for me, the most memorable and pleasant time of my childhood was when we practiced together. It wasn't the performing, it was the practicing together, and it just made me think about that, the way bringing music, the way either listening to music or performing music together, doing music or singing together, there is something about that joins us in a way that I don't think anything else can.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I think as I say, I'm not a fantastic musician, but I love to play the flute, and I love to be around with people and do some drumming together and singing together and feel the resonance which you build through that. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Dance the same way. I reflect on some of the best conferences I ever went to, even though they might have been on the most serious topics. The best ones always ended with some kind of dance, celebratory dance, so that we would all go away feeling, not only did we have an amazing coming together, but something about the dance cemented it, the music and the dance. Yeah.
And that is also nice when you mention dancing and things like that. When you introduce that in the corporate world, that is also that's also initially that's a no-go. So don't bring that too frantically. But I can tell you we had an outdoor, and we were in a conference center, but it was outdoors, and we were sitting, and I had my drum in the middle. It was lying in the middle, and we had just a business talk with each other. And then at the first coffee break, the CEO asked me, he said, "What is that drum doing there?" I said, "Well, it's lying there just in the middle to symbolize the middle where all the wisdom comes together and resonates like on a drum." Oh, okay. I said, and sometimes I play on it, and can I try it? And I said, "Yeah, go ahead." And then he picked up the drum. He started playing himself. So I didn't introduce anything. He did it himself, and he started to drum on it. And then his colleagues started to stand around him. Wow, that's a sound! And they started drumming harder and harder. And then someone else started to chant on it. And then we got it going. And within 10 minutes, people were dancing around, and they were drumming, and it was their thing. They did it.
That's great. That's fabulous.
Yeah. But I see also some chat. Peter Sørensen, he said he said something. Perhaps it's nice that to go into these kind of reactions and questions of people.
We have just a moment or two before we put people in breaks. But why don't you react to what Pete put in the chat, and then after you do that, we'll put people in breakout rooms and they can talk among themselves and come back with probably a lot of ideas for you to think about.
Yeah, I read here, Peter is mentioning about kingdom building behavior, and which is in the way of working collaboratively and with other people, and that is typically, I think, a sign of surviving, a sign of unsafety. And what you see in organization is people first, they withdraw themselves to their department, and if they're getting even less safe, then they withdraw themselves to 3 or 4 colleagues. And if it's even that not safe, then they withdraw themselves to 1 colleague, and it's just complaining and gossiping. It's talking about people, not talking with people. It's avoidance. It's all the same reflex, and you see that in neighborhoods, and you see it in boardrooms and organizations. It's all the same. It's fear, and that asks this intervention to step in and to bring openness there. As a facilitator, you can't do that. I can facilitate it, but I think the leader has got a very big role in that, to set that setting, and I can coach her or him, but it is the leader who has to do that, and who has to show herself or himself vulnerable. And create a place where people start to express themselves. And that is I would say it's like a staircase, a spiral staircase, which you go down together. When you enter such a dialogue, then people start to share. And I always warn the CEO or the responsible person. I warn them that the first half hour or 45 minutes, it will be really frustrating to listen to that all, because it will be emptying the bucket, and it will be complaining. And whoever starts, it's like a circle. It's a systemic thing. If you start a circle this way, then the complaining starts here. If you start a circle the other way, then the complaining starts there. The bucket has to be emptied before there can come some balancing. I call it first emptying the bucket, then balancing, and then opening up for new perspectives. It's a process which we go through together. And that gradual process, that's why I call it a spiral. It gradually creates safety, more safety, more safety. And that's how you grow safety with each other, and that's how you come beyond this building on kingdoms situation. But that asks this intervention, and that asks courage of the leader.
Yeah, lots of coaching most likely involved. Yeah.
That was lovely, Bernhard. I like the spiral image and the idea of emptying first. All right, I'm going to put people in breakout groups, and you'll be in there for about 20 minutes, and then I'll try to give you a minute or two warning before you come back, and then you'll be prepared to share your thinking with Bernhard and questions if you have them.
So I am very interested in Peter Sorensen's your observation. Do you want to get us started?
Which observation you mean?
Peter Sorensen, the one you said about having a conversation yesterday with a young bright woman about how she wanted to hold power. So I'm trying to find you here.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell the story, and that might be something to get us going with.
Well, I already touched that a little bit. It is. I think it is.
I'm sorry. That's right. You did talk about that, and I'm looking for Pete, and I'm not even sure he's here. But if you have something more to say, go ahead.
I can add something to that. I think I've together with my colleagues, I have sessions with sometimes over 50 people in one room, like one organization. And then the CEO, he was worried if people could get concentrated, if everyone was talking, and it was really magical, creating this openness, and gradually people is emptying the bucket, and then creating openness and safety, and really it really helped that the CEO who had normally the reflex to go in debate with every single person, so then you get a sort of simultaneous ping pong. And that would kill the dialogue, and he did not, and that created so much space, and he dared to show himself very vulnerable in that. He said, yeah, I know. He started with opening why are we doing this and what his intention was, but and that's also what I say always is you start with your intention and showing yourself, but content wise you're the last one to speak, not the first one. And I think that's the difference between a manager and a leader. A leader dares to talk, to speak last, and dares to throw in the spark, and has the guts to throw in the spark as first, and then content-wise speak as last. Mm-hmm. And by doing that, we created such a safe space that people really, really opened up, and that was, and out of that came some beautiful new values. New corporate values for the organization out of that session. And then we gave follow-up to that, of course. You have to follow that up. I think Harold Clark knows a lot about that, about giving follow-up and structurize that. But the basis was there to show up and be open and vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
And I want to call on Nicolette because she has an interesting question. And would you unmute yourself, Nicolette, and
Yes.
Yeah. You said what are do you want to explain the rules? You said.
Yeah, I know Bernhard from Holland, and I worked with him with dialogue. I think it really works. And what I experienced just now in the conversation about it, if you have not experienced it yourself, and to get maybe a picture of how it looks like a circle like this. Useful now, but that was my idea.
Uh-huh. You mean this sketch which I made sometimes?
Yeah, and the idee fixo.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I got, and that is, I think these principles, they're a little bit more extensive than what David Bohm is saying, but it comes down to share intention, and there to be vulnerable, take ownership for your own emotions. And also for your I call it the ownership also for the emotions which you also invoke in others. So take ownership for that, and speak from your own experience, not about, but talk from within, and that brings you closer to the heart. And we are all experts of our own experience, but we are not experts of others, about others. So those are very important principles, I think, for entering such a dialogue. And yes, I agree with you, Nicolette, that you can't. You know the saying, how to explain how apple pie tastes if you never have eaten it. And so that's what I very often do, is when people are asking me, how does it work? Then I pick a pen or a talking stick. This is my talking stick, which I got from Phil. And I say, well, let's start. And we just start. And then they experience it themselves. And then we talk about a dialogue program in a dialogic way. And then already the idea dribbles down in people. Oh wow! So this is what's happening. And then you become aware, I think, with a lot of people here with dialogue experience, you become aware of what it means to slow down and to speak your deeper truth instead of your first thought. And that you get out of this popping ideas mode towards really sensing into what is now to be said, what is now to be said through me. And it's no longer you who's talking, but you are part of the whole, and the whole is creating a new thing, and that new thing is created in the middle. And I agree with Nicolette, you have to experience that instead of talking about it. You can talk about dialogue, but do it in a dialogic way. And that's a very nice and playful start to do simple. Just take a stone or a pen. Or once I was with my high school buddies, and we had a hiccup, and I took a beer bottle. I said, okay, the one who's got the beer bottle in the hand is going to speak, and the rest has got the beautiful chance to listen, truly listen. And that's why I love, by the way, that's different from Bohm, I love working with a talking stick or a talking stone. And it's really slowing down. And it's really bringing the focus. It's really clear where the focus lies in the conversation. And another thing that is also nice, that's scientifically proven, and that is the moment you got an object in your hands, and it goes, and you are, it's your turn to talk. And then you see that people start to do things with that object. And that's a very autistic reflex. And autistic is not a bad thing. It's more or less saying that you're grabbing yourself. Auto is yourself. You're grabbing onto yourself. Okay, what is it I really wanted to say? Mm-hmm. And with an object in your hands, that's a beautiful thing. You come more close to what you really wanted to say than without. And it's very natural. And it seems to, what researchers have found out is that having a talking stick and dialogue, it activates the neocortex, and what is more important, it activates the connection between the neocortex and the mammal brain. Oh. And that is where reflection and compassion, so empathy, because that is the mammal brain, comes together. Reflection is in the neocortex, and the empathy and the compassion is in the mammal brain. And that's, I think, a very important ingredient for the magic, which can then take place. People are no longer in their mind, but they are really in their heartfelt truth.
That's beautiful. Linda G., do you want to ask your question? I think it's particularly relevant, given we just talked about how you can hold something and that makes a difference. So please.
Yes, I mean, how do you do this kind of work via Zoom when people can't meet? I know you can't drum together. We've tried that. You can't even sing together. How do you establish connection through Zoom?
Yeah, that is absolutely true, Linda, that it is more a challenge. But I think the basic things for a dialogue, and that is showing up as a leader, opening, showing your intention, and showing your vulnerability, and that is a first very important thing. And doing before that, there are still, like I tried just now with my flute. I think in whatever way you do it, I think it's very beautiful to take a moment and take a breath together. And the breath, and that is what I love to include also breath work in my work, and that is doing a short breathing exercise sometimes, because breath is really bringing ourselves to our at ease. It is it's the game between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic brain system, and it brings the parasympathetic alive, and it gets us out of our stress. So it is bringing us down and it's attuning our mindset, and doing that, and then opening with some sincere words of the leader, that is, I think those are two very important ingredients which also work very, very nicely in the Zoom.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Tom, why don't you unmute and ask your question?
Hey, Bernhard, this is really helping me a lot. So I'm wondering, where is your growing age? Where do you want to go with dialogue yourself? What do you feel is you're trying to get to that? Where's the growing age?
Wow, what a question. I especially in these days, what I notice, and that's also what my book will be about. It will be about dialogic leadership in times of in polarization. I think in these days where things are so snappy and judgments are so easily thrown over each other, and social media is hyping all things. I think it's a huge challenge to come to find each other and to come to your own inner peace in that. And I would love in what way, or whatever way, I love to contribute to that, to helping bridging people from different sides in society, and bringing them together, but also helping them to come to themselves and to a deeper part of themselves. And that is the healing part, which I just also touched. And healing is nothing else. That sounds also a little bit fake, but healing is nothing else than recognizing your old, let's call it your trauma path in your brain, because it's a trigger, and the neurotransmitters they go in a certain way, and that you recognize it, and that you can give yourself a stop and allow yourself to build a new path, an alternative path. And it is actually what I experience. It's a circle, the witnessing of others, that helps you so tremendously. I think in that the AA, for instance, is a wonderful example of that. So a long answer to your question, but I love to contribute in such a way to society, and also point out the universality of it. This is going on everywhere, and everyone is entitled to its own trauma and its own shit, and it's a beautiful journey in our life to come clean with that, and it's fantastic to do so, and it's continuing, and we can help each other with that, and instead of polarizing and standing opposite to each other. So that's my little contribution to a more beautiful world, Tom.
Lovely, thank you.
Harold, I see your hands being raised.
Yes, thank you. Bernhard, first of all, thanks for taking the time to share your story and your journey with us. You mentioned the idea of showing up, and I happen to think showing up is very, very important. But I'd like to hear you talk more about what showing up means to you. So when you speak of showing up, what does it mean to you?
Wonderful question. What it means for me, showing up, is I learned that well, in consulting jargon, we all know the pyramid of Lencioni. And the bottom of the Lencioni pyramid is trust. It starts with trust, and through trust, you can have the clash of differing opinions. And if you have a team where you can clash with each other on opinions and be open with each other, then you can build commitment. And with commitment, people start taking on responsibility, which brings beautiful results. And I was figuring always that, everyone talks about trust, but how do you build trust? What is underneath that? And then I come to openness and vulnerability, and that is for me showing up, to be open and vulnerable in that, and at the same time, in your openness, dare to have a vision as a spark, and see it as a spark, but don't hold on to it as a fixed thing, but at least throw in the spark. That's where fire starts, with a spark, and then let go and see what others contribute to that. I think that is showing up, that it is truly your intention to throw in the spark and then invite in all your openness and vulnerability. I think that is, for me, what showing up is.
Well, thank you very much for that, Bernhard. And I share your position on showing up. I just wanted to hear you talk a little bit more about it. But I share your position, and I think it all begins with showing up and how you present yourself. And the quality of your dialogue depends a lot on how vulnerable that you're allowing yourself to be and how open you're allowing yourself to be. I find often that people get into dialogue, but they're not allowing themselves to be vulnerable, and they're not allowing themselves to be as open as they think they are. And that has a way of impacting the quality and the outcomes of the dialogue.
So true, so true. And again, when I come back to my spiral staircase, I think the showing up that determines the inclination of the staircase. If you really show up, then people, okay, so this is where we dare to go together, because the leader sets the tone, and that is, and if you don't do that, then indeed people stay on the safe surface, and you won't get further than mind ping pong.
I want to turn to Ginny Emerson and ask her if she would speak about her comment and question.
Well, hello everyone, and I am shocked, Nancy. But my comment, I was in a session with Lloyd, and Lloyd and I were talking about, I was sharing that I'm with the Department of Corrections, and I work with a lot of people that deal with addiction. And I was talking about how wonderful it would be if they could get out in nature after we take them to a certain point in their recovery and just let them build on nature, because it's an eye-opening experience. And I also shared with Lloyd my own personal experience of recovery. And Lloyd shared with me this great, wonderful book that we started talking about. And I shared it in the chat, Braiding Sweet Grass. And it's by Robin Kimmer. And it was just, we were talking about nature and how sometimes, and there was a point in my life I didn't love nature, but in recovery, you learn to appreciate things. And we're dealing with snow right now in the area that I live in. And I used to hate snow. But now to go out and just be out in the snow and just fall out in the snow and make a body image or make a snowman, how beautiful it is. And just doing those, seeing the children play in the snow. Yes. And it's just a whole different perspective. And so I just had a wonderful conversation, and I was just thinking and being a visionary and say, wouldn't it be wonderful to take a group of recovering people out in nature and just build a community around a campfire and talk about, you know, their experience and let them heal in a natural environment. Yes. So that's what we were talking about.
Oh, wonderful, Jenny. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, actually, that's what we. I don't know. And it was in the flyer was also a link to a video, and that was a video where a program is shown, and we call it the Hero Outdoor Challenge, and where I, together with Rijk Smitskamp, we take homeless people with a lot of addiction problems. We take them out in nature in a 4 days program, and they start as a complete diverse group. In that movie, you can see with the age is from 19 until way into the 60s, and they end up as one group, and they end up in a really, really beautiful healing process with themselves and with each other helping each other. And the aftermath is beautiful, because then they go back to Amsterdam, but they continued, and we coached them and we gave follow-up to that. But they became self-propelling with this group, and this group with this huge age spread, they started supporting each other. They went to the gym together. They helped each other moving houses, and all kind of things happened spontaneously. And they helped each other really in keeping sober, staying clean. And so and that is indeed, Jenny, what I agree with you. That's the power of what nature does to you, because they really, some witnesses of these people, what they wrote some references, and they said that was the first time they felt human again, and they felt themselves again. They witnessed themselves again. And that is a beautiful program. In this program, we also do some fasting. And that's also very, very challenging for these people. Incredibly challenging. Fasting for 24 hours, that is really something. But they find themselves through that, and they support each other in that. And then you got a healing program, because they experience themselves in a different way, and they love it, and they got a social group context to keep doing that. And I think those ingredients are really important for healing. Wonderful, Jenny. You had a good dialogue. I loved it. And I love to play in the snow sometimes with you. That's really cool.
Thomas Klug, do you want to ask your question around music? You're on mute.
Yes, I will. Well, Bernhard, you mentioned music as some kind of a universal connector, and as something that also will help to resonate. And when I'm trying to make sense of our current time, which is a huge transformation time, I'm looking for the music that could support this transformation, and I don't find it. And I see that in the past, we had the rock and roll phase, where the support in the 50s and 60s of that time, the roaring time, and we had jazz, which was even before. Maybe we had disco music or something else later on. But what is the music of these days that can help to transform what we have to transform? Do you have any idea, or any others?
I think Thomas, a beautiful question, and I got two answers on that. One answer is it will show up. It's organically what will be there. And another answer is you better ask my son, who is also here in this call, because he is right now doing a producer study at the conservatorium, and he is a fantastic musician. So I can link him to you, and you can see him here. Jelle, you're in the picture.
We just had a conversation. We just talked in the same room.
Aha, you were there. So then you're already connected. And I think Jelle he's young, and he's incredibly gifted on music. So he's much more in tune with these waves than I am. So yeah, keep contact with Jelle, I would say, Thomas.
I will. We have to exchange mails. Yes.
If I can say, can I say something?
Yeah, Nicola, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I'm a biodanza teacher. I'm a teacher. I've worked with groups with all kinds of experiences and music. We use all kinds of music. It depends on what you want to achieve, but you can use classical music, you can use African music, you can a lot of music. If you can call me if you want, because I have thousands of pieces of music about healing, and it's all kind of different kinds of music. Thousands and thousands of pieces.
Yeah, wonderful.
I believe that. My question was, so maybe, may I just ask one more?
Sure, go ahead, Thomas.
Is there something where the different movements of music and the different kinds of music will flow into one flow, and there will be a music of the time that also will give us direction and will help us for that healing that we need in that kind of transformation? Not the different kinds where you can work with, I believe that, but is there something that might emerge as a dominant kind of music that will help these days to transform?
Let's hear from Jelle. Jelle, what would you add?
Yeah, I'm hoping we slowly get the chance again to unite and and feel what resonates all throughout this society. But I think also what I also said in the breakout room, that nowadays on radio there's a kind of music that for a lot of people doesn't hit the spot and just feels kind of shallow. But I think underneath there's something coming, and I hope it will reach the surface very soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jelle.
It's really an important question, isn't it? I like the question a lot about what's coming, and Thomas, that can bring us together. I think that's an important question.
Profound question, Tom. That's profound.
Yeah.
Yes, and I was in the group as well with these two gentlemen here, and Anne. And you know what we were really talking about is what's here in contemporary music. We were talking about the different genres that were moving. You know, we have the blues and jazz and rock and roll and classic rock, and we were sort of at a loss, you know, here today, I guess, is what our discussion was, our dialogue was about, I should say.
Yeah.
I would like to offer that I'm pretty sure it's not rap. But it's not rap. Right. But beyond that,
I'm just noticing in my own music, I sing with my partner, not every night, but almost every night. And we basically are doing a lot of music from the 60s and the 70s. Now, of course, I'm a baby boomer. But what I've noticed is singing those old songs is quite healing, because it puts me back to where I had more idealism in my life. And I was trying to reach out and touch the world in certain ways that perhaps I lost when I then joined the business world. So for me, it's been quite a healing journey to play those songs as memory to a place that I had long ago maybe forgotten or abandoned. So that's just one thing that I found.
And I want to ask Elko if he has some thoughts about music.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, is Elko here?
Okay. Well, I was thinking when we talked about the music, for me it's so important that the music come from within, and everybody has its own music. So it has to, you know, maybe it's not just some kind of music we are looking for, or that we maybe can feel what is the music that is starting within and then coming out. I mean, when you are with a group together and we are making music, or I am making music, the most beautiful thing is when we find some sort of a frequency in which all the people start to contribute and to do something themselves, and something comes out of that.
Yeah.
So I would say that's the challenge, to find music within.
Wonderful.
And I want to call on Hugh also to have that answer that question, and then we do need to start the end. But Hugh, so music has been so important in your life and so important in the films you created. Can you speak a little bit about music before we stop?
I am so much in awe of the practical work that Bernhard you do, that I feel hesitant to say very much at all. If I could just respond to Linda, the song that comes to mind is "Bridge Over Troubled Water." and at the very last concert that Simon and Garfunkel gave is available on YouTube, and I was there's something so extraordinarily uplifting about that song. A song of hopefulness, a song of compassion and of joy, but the music rises and rises and rises to a high point of celebration. And it's the rise and fall of music that I think embodies the light and the dark, the yin and the yang of our lives, in a way that it isn't confined to a philosophical abstraction. It is a rise and it is a fall, and all of us have fallen, and all of us seek to recover and support each other to recover. The music moves with us. That's what I find so joyous about it. But if I had any power now, I would turn on Bridge Over the Troubled Water as a way of ending.
That's a great song for our troubled times right now, Hugh. Pete, you had your hand up before we move into closing. Did you want to?
Yeah, about the music. Yeah, well, there are a lot of beautiful songs, but what I've noticed over the years is that there's also in many cultures a way of singing, of chanting, which has so much in common, like the Tibetan that chanting that the monks do, and the Mongolian throat singers, but also a didgeridoo. Many cultures have that low humming. That's come from, yes, like that, exactly. We can do it all together. That would be nice. One ending. It's free. Yeah, but there's something in that. Well, we're talking about healing. We're talking about being at ease, at our own ease. And I use that kind of, well, it's not really a song or a music, but in many times in coaching with individuals or in groups, and it does something to a group, to an ambience, to a sphere. It's very beautiful, and it is so simple because it's mostly the drum. Bernhard also had that shaman drum. Boom, boom, boom. Let's do it. Maybe there's.
Let's do it.
Yeah, it's very
Let's do it now.
Yes.
Maybe we can close with that. I did want to say Katrina has left, and she wrote me a private note. I did not know this. She wanted to make a mention that Michael Jones died Wednesday. Many of us in this community knew Michael Jones. He contributed a lot to many dialogue programs, and he was a musician, right? So he died Wednesday. So just to know that. So I'm going to just say a few words about our next guest, and then Bernhard, maybe we can do a little drumming together and close us out. So next month, Nancy, maybe you can tell us what the date of that is. I don't have that handy. Okay. We are going to kind of build a bit on what we talked about here in terms of the Native American tradition. We're going to have Glenn Aparicio Perry join us, who has written a couple of books. This was, I think, his first, called Original Thinking. The subtitle is A Radical Revisioning of Time, Humanity, and Nature. He had the rare opportunity of sitting with Bohm and Leroy Little Bear as part of his dissertation process. And that just blew him away. It started him down a very unique path. He lives in Albuquerque, and he does a lot with Native American ceremony and ritual, and has really brought that into his work. He has another book that I am dying to read just because of the time we find ourselves in the United States right now, called Original Politics, in which he claims, and I know this is true, the little bit I know, that our Constitution and our founding fathers actually hung out with the Native American, the Northeast Native Americans, the Algonquins in particular. And so many of what was actually at the founding of our United States and is in our Constitution comes directly from Native American thought. So I think it'll be very interesting, the session, and how he views dialogue again and Native American tradition. So he will be with us next month. Do you have that date, Nancy?
Oh, sorry, I'll pick it up.
Yeah. And maybe you can put in the chat how to register for that, if that's up, if that's available for people. So if there's no, are there any last comments for Bernhard, or should we drum our way out? Just want to give anybody, if there's any last questions, comments, check out, reflections.
Yeah, please.
It is February 11th that Glenn will be with us. And I would love to put it in the chat. I have the link, but for some reason, I'm not able to put it in the chat. So, but if you go online, you can see it there.
Yeah, if you go on the
I wonder just quickly, Bernhard, if you had thoughts on, for me, shifting to an indigenous worldview is the one shift we have to make if we're going to sustain and going into the future. And so what gives you hope that that one shift is something we can make, helping the light bulb go on for other people? Because to me, it comes down to a basic choice of realizing we're all connected or not, all those things.
What gives me hope, you say, is your question.
Mm-hmm.
I see it happening as a prophecy of a Native American prophecy. Many prophecies of the Hopis, of the Dakota, but also of the South Americas, they speak about the time. There will be a time. The Hopis said there will be a time that the entire world will be surrounded by a big spider web. That was one vision, and that was 800 or 1,000 years ago that prophecy came. And there will be a very long spiritual winter time. That is the prophecy of the Dakotas. After they shot the 9th white buffalo, the albino buffalo, there will be a very long spiritual winter time. But and it's actually the tribe of Phil Lane Jr., his tribe, they shot that last white buffalo on the prairies around the 1850s. And they knew when they would shoot it, that a very long spiritual winter time in which their people would almost go extinct would come. But nevertheless, they shot it because they did believe after a big winter time will be a springtime. And right now, what you see, reading David Attenborough, reading all this consciousness raising about Mother Earth and what we are doing to it. And I think also this COVID time is also bringing us really into a ditch. And after that winter time, there will be a springtime. It's inevitable. It's a circular way. And what I see now is that the way of thinking, the indigenous way of thinking, the indigenous, they are, in their way of thinking, they are leading the way about sustainability. And so you see their way of thinking and looking at the world as a source, as Mother Earth. It's I would say 20 years ago I could not talk about it because then people would call me vague, but now it's completely accepted. So I'm very positive in that. I see that movement there, and yes, it is not going linear, but never has been. There's no process in nature that goes linear. That's in our brain. It's always a very strong curve this way or a very strong curve that way. It's never linear. A tree doesn't grow linear. A tree grows very fast and then it goes this way. And a fire never starts this way. A fire starts this way and then the fire is there. So all processes are non-linear. And I see huge changes coming, especially now also going out of COVID time. So we are in a turmoil time, and I think especially in this turmoil time, it's very, very big challenge to keep in touch with nature and with ourselves as a good medicine.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Bernhard. Thanks, Stephanie. I did want to mention that Annette has put into the chat the link if you would like to register for next month. It's there. That would make it easy for any of us. Any last questions, comments, reflections? If not, I think a little drumming us out would be Yeah.
This is the drum of a black bear, and it's shot by a Native American, Larry Two Eagles, on Vancouver Island, and he prepared the bear. And this bear was shot because it was coming too close to humans, and then the natives have the right to shoot it. And the beautiful thing of it, at least, is that they use every little piece of the bear in a sacred way. So I made several drums myself, but this drum is my favorite. My name is also Bernhard, so yeah, there you go.
There you go.
So I give it a drum, and I would like to thank you all for listening to these things. I hope I was not too much of a preacher for you guys. I can be that.
We're great, Bernhard. Thank you.
Okay, and now we and when drumming, I could sing a song, and it's a Native American song, and that song is about Great Spirit. See us here, witness us here, where we come together, and let this place where we come in all nakedness, and with our shanupa, that's the sacred pipe which unites the plant people, the human people, the stone people, and the animal people together, and then the shanupa. So we come together with my shanupa, and that's all I've got, and let this place where we meet, let it be a sacred place. So that's this song. It's called, my son knows it, and it's called Wayankie. I will give it a try. Online. It's my first time online. Shanupa kile wakayelo wayankie 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 Shanupa kile wakayelo wayankie.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Bernhard.
Thank you, Bernhard.
Thank
Lovely
Thank you
session.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.